shows are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Welcome to the Adventures in Tech podcast, talking the latest tips and trends in educational technology to innovate and engage your students. Here are your hosts, Andrew and Dan.
We are back, episode 73 of the Adventures in Tech podcast. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dan.
And we're excited you're on this venture with us. Of course, please make sure you provide feedback and a rating wherever you get your podcast from. We greatly appreciate your support. Lots going on, Dan, right? Like, talk to me. What do you got going on, Dan?
There's a lot going on. So, probably still continuing on a lot of what we've been doing in the past, just branching out to more teachers. So, working again with the 9th grade bio classes to do a little stop motion for DNA.
That was cool.
That was cool, but founding, with every time we do another iteration of some of these projects, there's a lot of new components that get added into it. So, sometimes it's about streamlining the workflow and the environment that you're working in. So, with the stop motion DNA, we kind of build it in a slide deck, but the kids wind up with hundreds of pictures.
Right.
To coordinate in the slide deck and set the timing. Cool thing was with the, AI and all of this and the rabbit hole I always go into. And I actually worked with an awesome student in that 9th grade class to write a script that would take all the pictures in a folder and then automatically embed them into the slideshow, set the timings, and then also send off an email to the student that shared the link that they can get their own copy of the slide deck and the video format to turn in. So that streamlined the workflow. So a lot of this, when we're looking at doing these, larger PBL things where we're cutting down the time frame of, the time spent in class on these projects. Not that it's a waste of time, but sometimes, to streamline the process and really get the workflow through, it's quite a benefit. So that was really cool. And then I know we can talk about working with the Civic Seal with the 8th grade. That seems to be going off fairly well right now with the use of Gemini Gems and NotebookLM.
Yeah, which is just, Google continues to push the limits, push the envelope as far as technology and how to integrate it, really in the form of utilizing it for great classroom experiences for the students. So they are doing a great job with that. The other thing I wanted to mention, Dan, is you were having some fun with music.
Always having fun with music.
Yeah. So what were you? We'll tease what it is. You were working with another one of our colleagues for creating a song and a character and kind of just explain a workflow of how it worked.
Hold on.
Yeah, step in the box, it's showtime. Got the lumber in my hands, it's a statement I'm making. Every pitch they be
yeah. And where did you make that from, Dan?
I just had to throw that in. So, and I know you have it kind of queued up in our notes, but the audio generation in Gemini has been pretty good. So looking at creating original soundtracks based on some lyrics or things generated by whomever will create you some pretty awesome clips in Gemini, some music clips, but I also use Suno as well.
Big fans.
So, to get a little background, and I don't know how too deep we want to go into it, but one of our colleagues, Kristen Marino, works tirelessly.
Yeah, she does.
On that curriculum for our younger learners when it comes to ELA and phonics and spelling and all that stuff that she puts into it. The amount of work is just
heart and soul.
Incredible. But she creates some cool characters for the different grade levels. Now I can speak from experience because my son is in 3rd grade now.
Yep.
But coming from kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, now 3rd grade, they have their own characters that really works in their ELA block and becomes like almost part of the classroom. So we took Dakota.
The dog,
the beagle, and kind of animated him into a 90s style hard rock concert giving and made song called The Eye of the Speller.
Yeah, it is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. And once it is fully released, we will for those who don't get to hear it, we will share a little snippet. But we're not gonna.
I can't play it now.
No, we're not gonna tease it now.
It's not in the public realm yet.
Correct. So it's I would say coming to a soundtrack near you soon, right? Instead of a theater, but it is awesome. Not only that, and then you really made them come to life with a video.
I did.
And
So
explain that process. As people are like, well, how do I take an image to a video easily?
So I messed around in a few different. I tried in Gemini, and it wasn't giving me good results.
Wanted, right?
It was making me videos, but they had so many errors downloading and all that. So I jumped ship on Gemini and went into Canva. Mm-hmm. And Canva could take that image that I created and put it into a video that is quite intense.
Yeah, we'll have to post that at some point. And it's only about, right now, I think they can only do 10 seconds, right?
It was a 10-second video, so I looped it
right
to make it a minute long to fit the soundtrack that I made.
I'm sure that as Canva continues to evolve, that time length will, grow more than 10 seconds. So it's pretty cool, that you can use that platform to create this. And when you see it, you'll be like, wow, okay, that's that at its finest. That's utilizing your resources and AI to ensure you make a great product for the students in general. So,
and once you get the workflows down to create these different things, it's really not that much of a lift. I mean, you were in the office when I went down the rabbit hole, but I think amount of work time was 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
From the song to the video to getting it all done. Of course, I mean, kind of knew the tools were there, but I think that's why we're here, is to talk about the different tools and what's available and how you can start playing around with them.
And if you haven't played, I know Dan mentioned Gemini and the music there, and Suno, S-U-N-O. You get a certain number of credits for free every day. Trust me, I utilize mine almost on the daily, as does Dan. Thinking back how we used to do original content creation with Chrome Music Lab and everything, now it's just an efficient workflow with prompting and getting these things to get to exactly the product that you want. Makes it super easier than a Google search, let's say, or purchasing resources from certain websites that you may not have to actually purchase, because you can actually create exactly what you're looking for quite quickly and efficiently. So, all right.
I just have to point out, I'm not liking my chair. I feel so small right now.
We're not on video. I don't know. They move furniture around all the time.
I don't know.
We'll have to go to a different place next time.
It's fine. We'll
go to a closer studio next time.
I'm looking up at you.
Yeah.
From your throne.
Well, I don't know about that. So, big conference coming up, ISTE 26.
In Orlando.
Shocker. June 28th to July 1st in Orlando, Florida. It'll be at the Orange County Convention Center. It is a premier educational technology conference, and it's co-located with the ASCD annual conference, which is the administrator one, right, Dan? Mm-hmm. So it'll be focusing, of course, on AI, digital citizenship, and innovative teaching. They'll have in-person and virtual participation, so you can definitely register online if you want any more information. It's just ISTE. You go to conference.iste.org and you can get all the information, whether you want to go in person or try the virtual component. So we did go to ISTE when it was in Philly years ago.
Yes.
It was a great time. I mean, we're talking 7 years ago now, Dan. Crazy, right?
That
with ISTE. However, with the combining of the administrator one, it's not really, and the time of the year just doesn't work for us. So we will not be at ISTE. So sorry to disappoint all of our fans out there. So, all right, we're going to talk. A lot of Google news came out. First and foremost, custom music in Google Vids, powered by Lyria 3 and Lyria 3 Pro. You can now create custom music in Google Vids, which is Google's latest music generation model. So you just basically use text-based prompting. Any Google Vids user can generate clips about 30 seconds or longer, up to 3 minutes for your video project. So maybe you need an upbeat, high-tempo track with pop-style lyrics tailored for your product pitch. Instead of having to search for the perfect track and using royalty-free, you can now simply write a prompt in Vids to create the exact track you're looking for. So definitely something to check out there. It is in full rollout mode for educational customers, and look forward to really messing around with that. I haven't messed with it too much. Have you, Dan?
No, but it's something that I need to start playing with. And then it's cool because you can export your vids directly to YouTube too.
Yeah.
So that's a nice feature that came up as well.
And it's just just the integrated part into Google Classroom and everything. Lots you can do, and you're always in a safe space. So, a couple Apple news things that came out. Actually, you saw that Tim Cook is officially done September 1st. I think he's like executive chairman or something. and I forgot the gentleman's name off the top of my head, but he was integral with different components of the iPhone design and AirPods that he will be taking over September 1st. And when we talk about
John Turnus,
thank you. When we talk about iPhone, so two quick things. The new iPhone will be released in September. They haven't fully announced it all, but patents have been for a foldable iPhone, Dan. Are you ready for a foldable? Going back to the Motorola.
Yeah, right.
We'll call you Flip Phone Dan.
My flip phone.
So the other thing is Apple has really taken on the Gemini app and Google's Gemini for their own Apple Intelligence to really build in there. So now, in doing so, Gemini app is going to be on Mac OS as a native desktop experience designed to live right where you work. So you will be staying in your flow and sharing your window and doing all those things with Gemini for Mac. So I feel like Google's starting to take over that area.
It's quite interesting to see how this evolves over the next few months or year or so.
Yeah. Stay tuned here. We'll keep you, of course, posted in that regard. So every week, I feel like we talk about NotebookLM.
Right.
And NotebookLM continues to change. And so now NotebookLM has now increased limits, for Google Workspace for Education Plus, right? They now have more sources in each notebook. So, and you can send more chat queries today, create more flashcard sets and quizzes, and of course, in your studio multimedia generation, create more video reviews, audio reviews, infographics, and slide decks. So that just got announced last week. It's for all educational licenses, plus teaching and learning add-on, and it should be available now. You can see it if you have the Plus, which you should, Dan. I saw mine.
Yes.
Right near your photo icon in the top right corner. If it says Plus, it means you do have those expanded NotebookLM capabilities.
Nice.
We talked about longer music. Oh, this is Gemini app. We talked a little bit about the longer music with Lyria Pro and Lyria Pro 3, and that has been released as well. Mm-hmm. And then, Dan, for all those meetings that you do take in your car.
Nope. Saw that. Nope.
Google Meet is now available on CarPlay. So
lucky us.
Please feel free to call Dan, schedule a meeting. He will download the app onto his CarPlay, and he'll be able to connect with you whenever you need him to do so.
I can be reached at ANDREW.
And just Android Auto users, you can expect a version for Meet for Android Auto soon as well. So let's see. What else do we got news? We talked about, Dan mentioned the Google Vids directly to YouTube. So that's great. And then our good old friend Matt Miller has posted something about TechPD. How can we save it? Because over the last 15 years, or so, desktop, laptop computers have made their way into schools and classrooms, iPads, Chromebooks, tablets, iPod Touches at one point. If you remember one of those.
I remember working with iPod Touches.
Right, and then the pandemic hit. Yeah, that's a nostalgia item there.
It is.
Right? Getting all the old iPod Touches. But then the pandemic hit and schools closed, and we had schools that already had one-to-one devices, right? And then we had the ones who weren't one-to-one and rushed to buy and distribute devices or do some kind of, distribution for during remote learning. So during that time, we've noticed, Matt has a great article about TechPD and, just teachers were going through a very difficult time during, remote learning for the digital learning, because if they've never used a device or didn't really integrate technology into the classroom, they didn't know where to start, where to begin. And you talk about feeling frustration at an all-time high and overload. It was very, very challenging. But we did have great teachers as well who were used to using technology to augment support learning in a number of incredible ways that would never be possible. Immediate feedback, creative demonstrations of learning, collaborative work, whether they were in the room or around the globe, and authentic projects that let students make an impact on the world while also learning class content. So the big thing is, when we think about it, the use of the devices, right? The same stuff we did before tech, now only delivered with tech. That's kind of what it is, and it kind of goes into our SAMR model. Dan, you want to kind of just go over the SAMR model?
Yeah, I'll start there. When we look at the SAMR model, we're looking at the use of technology in the classroom. So it goes on a range of substitution, augmentation, modification, and redesign or redefinition. And I think, going back to the COVID era and everything, there was a lot of substitution brought in, a little bit of augmentation, and we kind of got in a hamster wheel of there. But I think, when we look at the SAMR model and the use of those devices, especially with AI putting more pressure on an already pressured system, as Matt says, we really got to think on using those devices. I know from my vision and walking into the classroom, I never want to see one kid to one device just sitting there doing something independently on a computer. I feel like we're missing out on great learning opportunities and the power of those devices for collaboration and creation if we're simply just substituting a worksheet. And I don't mean just filling out a Google Doc. I mean watching a video in isolation and answering questions or doing all these things when, does this really need to be done in the digital space, or is that digital device in their hands, like for a substitution, providing too much of a distraction going forward, that you'd be better served not to use that. But really looking at those devices to be used for what they're intended for creativity, for collaboration, for all those different skills that our students are going to need moving forward. They don't need to learn how to answer or fill out a document on a computer anymore. So maybe putting that on as an assignment in the classroom maybe isn't the best use of that device. If they were collaborating and posting up to a shared space and then building content over what they're putting on there, well, then that's a whole different animal going forward, because now we're in that augmentation and modification where we have that process built in where there's more higher level thinking. Filling out a worksheet, you're at the lowest level of blooms. You're at that that recall stage. And, why are we focusing on recall so much in the classroom when the teachers, as we know, the teacher is more beneficial when they're at those higher levels. So I think we really need to evaluate, when those kids have those one-to-one devices, which are great, do we really need to be using them all the time if we're just at a substitution or augmentation level?
Right, and I think that's what everybody's like, well, I gave you this $250, $300 Chromebook. It needs to be used every day for every single thing, and that's not the case. It's not the case at all. It's just that you have it available for those ideas and projects as needed. It's not something to just put the kids on, whether it's some kind of
babysitter.
Or like an assessment tool that, the state requires districts to give every so often. There's a whole different slew of platforms that different districts buy into, to show growth. But the growth, as Dan just mentioned, is not on those substitution level tasks. It's really as you start to level up the SAMR model and move up the levels of Bloom's taxonomy.
I mean, just going back to what we were talking before, just doing that DNA stop motion thing. I mean, we had, technology was a part of it. We had iPads. Well, because of the cell phone ban, we can't use those, so we bring in iPads. Some kids are setting up and taking the pictures and immediately uploading them to a Google Drive, where another person is then building the slide deck, and another person is doing this, and another person is doing this. They're all collaborating through those collaborative spaces we built, which is accessible through their Chromebooks. Now when we're doing our podcasting with the advent of Canva and being able to really utilize for the editing, they're recording, they're editing, they're building content, they're doing their thumbnails, they're doing this all in a simultaneous manner because of the devices that are in the classroom, and they're all producing something together. So, you can see a difference there, and I've noticed, at least in my observations of being there, when we're working on the Civic Seal and they're doing their research with a gem, yes, it's a one-to-one thing, but it's more than substitution, because the teacher has gone in and really set the parameters of how the gem is interacting. So it's asking them the higher level thinking questions throughout the gem, and they're interacting with it, looking at a conversation, and the teacher is circulating, talking, and doing more in that moment. And at those times, I don't see, as I'm just observing the students' screens, that they're on games, or they're
engaged.
They're engaged a little bit more, because, granted, when they're sitting there filling out a worksheet, they're copying and pasting it in, or just going from there.
Well, and as you mentioned, the gems, the key component also is we talk about an efficiency standpoint. So, the teacher can then actually scaffold learning for those who may need some more supports of the actual teacher.
Right.
And those who can, instead of just having a student stand at a table or stand at a desk waiting for whatever the simple or whatever question it may be, they're waiting to ask the teacher. Well, now they can continue on with their work in an efficient manner and continue working while the teacher then can, circle back to them as they're circulating around the classroom.
And just to bring up one more thing in Matt's article, he does say AI is putting more pressure on the pressured system, and it's looking at the traditional ways that students recall information. Look this up and answer this question on the worksheet. Read this textbook chapter and answer the questions at the end. Do this multiple choice quiz so I know you understood the material. I mean, in the past, we can get away with this because in a way, it did show us whether the students had learned or not. But today, that assessing of students is slipping through our fingers. I mean, we can't know that for sure with the advent of AI and everything in there.
Right.
I mean, are we there just to throw grades on a paper, or are we there to make sure the students know and understand? So
take a step back and look at that role. What is the role specifically?
Right. So, we should be using assessments to see whether students have learned and what we should do to keep learning on the right track. So I think it's something to be aware of as teachers start moving forward, whether it's, for ensuring their own assessments as they go forward to help the students go along, but with the new portrait of a graduate and the different things going forward, are our assessments actually beneficial to the learning environment that we're trying to create for our students? So I think that's something to consider. And as we talk about gems and all these different things, as teachers, we can personalize our own little agents and our own little apps to try and look at I was just sitting there building, as Andrew walked in, I was doing something, but I was building an assessment app. Right. So I was building it through Gemini Gems, where you could take your lesson plans, upload your lesson plans, and then once it's going into that app, it's going to look at it from, looking at your lesson plans, looking at your enduring understandings and essential questions, and kind of prompt you through different types of assessment, formative, summative, and performance assessments to make sure everything is in line. Right. So is it, from our standards, our objectives, our essential questions, our overarching our enduring understanding, and it'll help you create assessments that reflect what's actually you're putting into it.
That's instant feedback. And I do want to talk about gems and what you just mentioned. I do want to see, something Matt asked, and Dan, we both get asked this. How would I do that in fourth grade? How would I do that in kindergarten? How can I use this in math with AI? What about science, health, PE? Matt says, he's one person. He can't sit with every individual teacher and come up with a game plan that's going to work with them. And frankly, because he's like, I haven't taught their classes, I'm not the content master, and I'm not completely qualified to do that in that regard. And we think about ChatGPT and AI and how it'll be, in November, it'll be exactly 4 years since it was, first launched. And when we think about PD and technology and use of AI ethically, we know there's, everybody's got their own opinion on that. When you think about utilizing it, does using tech in general make learning better, right? Mm-hmm. Is there benefits to not using tech, as Dan had just mentioned, right? Is it flashy, or is it not helping to move the needle? And what best instructional practices or research results can point that align with what I'm trying, my outcome, my goal, right? It can't be the new shiny toy or that new foldable iPhone or anything like that. This app is awesome and so forth. It's, you can't say it's the wave of the future and it's not going anywhere, so you got to embrace it. Well, it's going to evolve, as we've just mentioned over and over again, quite rapidly.
And talking about the next shiny tool and things there, I'm finding that that's becoming less of an idea in my head, at least. Mm-hmm. I mean, it used to be like, all right, what is the new app or what is the new thing that can accomplish what I need to do? But with everything with generative AI, it's no longer me for looking something to, fill my bucket. It's me going in and filling my own bucket with my own ideas. So, either through creating gems, creating apps, looking at Canva code, as we talked about, to create those dynamic learning environments. I can customize that to what I need instead of trying to retrofit something else. So I think this the ever evolving state of AI and what's out there is really for the teachers that understand how they can own their own learning environments now.
Right.
I think is going to be something that we should, talking about PD, I think that's something where we go moving forward, is not looking for what something can do for me, but what I can do for myself using just I don't want to say bare minimum, but I don't need 18 different platforms to produce things anymore.
Right.
I can use 2.
Yeah, and we've kind of mentioned it in past episodes where you got to find what works for you in your workflow. You know, as Dan mentioned, he was messing around with Gemini, but then he went to Suno. So it's not like he's going to 6 different things for a music component, right? He's just using the ones that he needs in that regard, that he know are tried and true, let's say, at this point that he wants to utilize in his instruction and for the product that he's trying to, kind of connect with.
For example, and we'll get off this topic after this. I mean, Andrew hasn't seen this yet, but like I was talking about building this assessment thing. Now, I couldn't do it in my school account because it's not available yet. But in your personal Gmail, there is a lab for Gemini Gems that allows you to produce apps.
Oh, nice.
So it's slightly different. It's cool to look at, but I basically built an app where I guided it to upload your lesson plans, upload your digital learning spaces that are there, compare it with an understanding by design curriculum framework and your enduring understandings and essential questions, align it with the UDL tenants, and then prompt you, what kind of assessment are you looking for? Formative, summative.
Right. All the things
so
you
forth.
mentioned.
And then it starts brainstorming assessment strategies with you, and then looks at where in your lesson sequence you can put in those different assessments. And then when you're all done, it creates a nice HTML file.
That's
of
great.
Everything you've created with all links to everything that you put in there.
So, and that's part of your personal Gmail, free.
Yeah, free.
Right. So you don't need to be paying for that at all.
So there's something now that I have this app, I can just use it for every one of my units and lesson plans by simply uploading my artifacts and then looking at where I can put in those different types of assessments. So we always look at multiple means of action and expression, and we look at those ways. Well, maybe that multiple choice or whatever we're doing in the past isn't working. I can look at creatively putting in different types of assessment that may be more meaningful.
So I want to unpack that. I mean, I know it's in your personal account right now, and I'm sure it's just a matter of time before education comes, and I'm literally throwing everything else to a future episode.
Sorry.
No, that's okay, because I think it's an important component. Now, people are going to be like, well, Dan, you have the knowledge. Andrew, you have the knowledge of how to use labs and how to do this and how to do it. Fine. Like, yes, but Dan also taught himself just, with interacting with the product and the AI and everything like that. But before we even get to labs, let's just talk educational accounts. For the novice user, Dan, how do they start a gem, right? Let's unpack that for our listeners.
All right. So let me go over to my education account so it looks exactly at I'm
right.
But when you're in Gemini, just starting by going to gemini.google.com.
Yep.
And I hope our listeners have learned this by now. Like anywhere you want to go in Google, you just tell it where you want to go, .google.com.
Yeah.
So like I want to go
it's
to
not
Gemini,
rocket science. Yeah.
I want to go to Drive.
Keep,
I want to keep
whatever
it is. And also a quick thing, because if you need a new document, you can say docs.new,
yep.
slides.new, sheets.new,
forms.
sites.new, forms.new.
Yep.
It's a time saver. But you'll see in your menu bar to the left, there's something called gems.
Yep.
And then if you click on that, there's
gems like a diamond, people. That's what we mean.
And if you click on that, you can see ones that are pre-made by Google that you can adjust. So like Storybook and Brainstormer, Writing Editor gems, Learning Coach, Coding Partner gems. You can see some that are pre-made that you can adapt, or you can create a new gem.
Right.
Blue button that says new gem. These are things that you don't have to just create for your students as well. You can create them for yourself to be part of your workflow.
Is that how you started your whole idea with the labs, right? Through a gem?
Yeah, well, in my personal account, when
Right.
I looked at the gem, it said, "Oh, build iApps with a new kind of gem from Google Labs." So I said, "Ooh, let me try that."
Yeah.
But like, there's so many different things you can, build with those. So if you want to, you can build yourself a gem for differentiating your lesson plans for different kinds of learners.
Perfect.
So, you would go
Title it,
go in and use a prompt to say what you want to do. I like using, parts prompts and different things. I think we talked about that on the last episode.
Yep.
But you can do that. So every time you have that, so I created a gem from Lab 2 called my UBD planner.
Yep.
So my understanding by design. So when I'm going in and starting a new lesson or unit, I can go in and I'll use my UBD planner to plan everything out and then generate lessons from there. And then I can use my differentiation gem to throw that lesson in there and differentiate it for a variety of different things. So it'll take my one lesson plan immediately just by uploading in, the gem runs, and it'll create me 3 or 4 different differentiated lessons right off the bat.
So let's talk like for a research component, as we had mentioned with the kids, interacting as kind of a scaffold for teachers, right? So, I want to make this practical for our listeners. So they go to New Gem, they title it, they give a description of what it is. It's a research component helping students on the 8th grade civic seal or choose anything, right? Then they put their instructions as of who they're acting as.
Right.
Right. And then, people are going to say, Dan, what's the default tool, right? So what should the default tool be? I always leave it as no default tool.
I do too, but it also could depend on what you're doing. If you're using it just for image creation, you can do create image. If you're using it for deep research, you can choose that. If you're using it for music, you can
Dan's
do that.
music, yeah,
But,
there it is.
The no default tool is what I normally leave it as. And then, the thing is with the gems, you just build the knowledge base like you do in NotebookLM. You put in the source material for the gem to work off of.
And that's the key component is it's not hallucinating, which we've talked about in the past. It's all based on the knowledge that you provide.
So if you have curriculum maps, if you have all those different things, you can build a gem off of that. I mean,
you have those things already in a digital format some way, somehow. So this is the best way to utilize it because you already have those sources. The knowledge base is basically whatever you have curated over time.
Now, I will point out, like, the gems are a little different than notebooks. So when you're adding your knowledge base, they all have to be files. So it's Google Docs, PDFs, or whatever. But no, you can, if it's something on a web page, you can save that web page as a PDF.
Right.
So that's something we've had to do in the past as well.
Right. So that's the way to get started with gems.
Oh, can I also give another tip
Absolutely.
on using gems?
Yes.
Something that because sometimes you're building a gem to teach a student a skill or do something. If you use Screencastify to do a video recording of whatever you're trying to get the students to learn or do or whatever, that Screencastify, when you run the AI enhancements, will automatically caption that.
Yep.
And give you a transcript, so you could then put that video in as one of your knowledge sources for the gem, and it'll be able to read the captioning, the transcript of it, and work like it would just be any reference document. So we did one for how to edit audio files in Canva.
Yep.
I could not type up in a meaningful way
All the
knowledge base for that. So I did a screencast recording. So this is if you're showing students how to do annotation strategies, how to do writing strategies, how to solve a math problem that's very complex. You can do a screencast recording of you doing it, give them the video, and put that video as the knowledge base for a gem.
You know what I'm thinking that Google's going to eventually come out with, which it would not be a terrible idea, is let's just say across district having that library of gems already created, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know like we share gems back and forth, but let's say, I'm teaching, 7th grade bio or science, right? And I need, of course I have my colleagues and everything like that, but I want to see what other people are doing. Think about not having to reinvent the wheel. So maybe that repository or library will eventually come.
And, you know, we got to throw it to one of our colleagues here, Dom Mayo, who's been tirelessly building
good with
gems,
yeah.
And sharing them out with his ELA
component, his colleagues.
His ELA colleagues. So, and it's all about like looking at that workflow to make yourself more efficient. I think the purpose that we're looking at gems and some of these things are to maximize your time in the classroom face to face with students, where all that other periphery and everything, and even the bogging down of grading doesn't make things as actionable because you can't address things in the moment. By utilizing some of these things with gems,
right,
it really can make you more.
That's me. You just got alerted that I shared some with you. One of my gems.
But it can make you more responsive, I should say, in the moment to the needs of our learners. And then because of that, things like PBL or having that, you know, student experience in the classroom is much more practical.
Yeah. So what I did, Dan, is I just shared with you the gem on GarageBand.
I see
right?
that. Audio engineer tutor.
There you go. And then you can share the Canva one, and then we can just combine them and have one audio editing component. So, you know, if you want to create that, or I could share the Canva one with me, and we go from there. But again, like we said, a library. So, definitely went off of what we were going to talk about with certain things, but that's okay. That's
what happens.
It is. But gems is such an integral part of, and the safe component, because I know a lot of teachers have been using chat and everything, you know, Claude, everything that we've talked about in the past, right? But with students, using Google Gemini, using gems are such an integral way, because we know they're signing your privacy agreements because they're owned by Google, NotebookLM, all of them is so important, because these large language models, they can learn from, you know, what you're inputting in if they are not part of those privacy agreements. So if you have not started to mess around with, play with Gemini, I implore you to actually do so, just to kind of see. And if you really want to talk about a rabbit hole, Dan and I went down it, you can export your chat history and then import it into Gemini if you want. So just something you can do. Go ahead.
And you know, notice that gem, if you've been in Google Classroom and you're creating an assignment, you'll see attached notebook, attached gem. All these are being integrated right into Google Classroom. So you can create a notebook directly from Google Classroom. And when you create it directly from Google Classroom, like for an assignment or a material, you can just select the assignments in Google Classroom that you want the knowledge base to be. You can do that for both a gem and a notebook if you create it fresh from a Google Classroom assignment or material. So they're all kind of blending in together. That's why I said before, I'm like, I don't think I need as many tools as I needed before.
Right, especially in the educational workspace. And then, Dan, when Labs comes, you'll be very happy when it comes to your workspace account.
Also, people remember Gemini is built into Google Classroom. You see it right on your menu on your left, so you can outline a lesson plan, generate a quiz, read-level text, create a rubric, vocabulary list, choice board, all that, and prompt right within Gemini in Google Classroom as well.
So just, you know, if you have questions, of course, feel free to reach out. Any other final thoughts, Dan?
No.
You've given enough gems for the day.
Right. We need to start. I mean, there's so much now. I think we can just go down. We still have to talk more about Google Classroom, where creating audio lessons and video lessons.
I'll put it on the list.
Right in Classroom is something you can do as well.
We can definitely put that on a future episode that we will get out to you. But once again, thank you for all your support. Listen on all the platforms, leaving those reviews. Of course, questions, comments, suggestions, anything with a gem, whatever you want. Tech hard, work smart, live an adventure.
Find Andrew on all socials at A Nicola Tech and Dan at WCSD Tech DR.